If you are buying gold right now, stop. Not because gold is wrong, not because your instinct is wrong, but because there is something happening beneath the surface of that decision that almost no one ever examines, and until you understand it, the very act of buying gold may be quietly working against you. I know that sounds like the last thing you expected to hear. You came here because you believe in gold. You believe in something real, something that holds value when paper burns and systems crack. And I respect that belief deeply. But belief in gold is not enough. It never was. There is a law older than any market, older than any currency, older than the first coin ever struck. And most people, even the most disciplined, most prepared, most financially serious people, break this law every single time they reach for another ounce. The problem is not what you are buying. The problem is the order. And the order is everything. Most people who hold gold will never tell you what keeps them up at night. They won't say it out loud, but it's there. That quiet, low hum underneath all the preparation. You check the spot price before you go to sleep. You feel a small knot in your chest when the price dips, even though you bought it as a long-term hold. You've told yourself you're protected, but you don't fully feel protected. There's always a little more you feel you need. One more coin, one more bar, one more layer between you and whatever is coming. That feeling is not weakness. That feeling is not irrational. But that feeling is a signal, and not the signal most people think it is. You're not afraid because you haven't prepared enough. You're afraid because you've been holding gold from the wrong place. And gold knows the difference. I want you to sit with that for a moment, because what I am about to tell you took me years, and a conversation I almost missed, to fully understand. There is a difference between guarding your wealth and closing the gate to it. Most people who hold physical gold are doing both at the same time, and they don't even realize it. Here is the contradiction no one speaks about. The same instinct that drives you to gold, that deep, ancient pull towards something solid and real and untouchable by inflation, that same instinct, when it comes from fear, creates an invisible wall. It seals you in. And wealth, real wealth, does not flow into sealed rooms. You've probably heard the standard advice: buy the dip, diversify, hold long-term, add silver, stack consistently. I'm not here to argue with any of that on the surface, but that advice is incomplete in a way that costs people far more than they realize. Because all of that advice treats wealth as a mechanical system, when wealth is something else entirely. Wealth doesn't follow protection. It follows movement aligned with intention. And until you understand the difference, you can stack gold from now until the end of time and still feel the same way you feel right now. Before I explain what to do, you need to understand where this comes from. My grandfather was not a wealthy man by the standards most people use. He did not drive an expensive car. He did not own a large house. But he never wanted for anything. And more remarkably, the people around him rarely did either. He had a quality that I didn't have the language for as a child. I only knew that when he entered a room, something settled, something relaxed. Not because he was loud or impressive, because he was at peace with money, in a way almost no one ever is. He had studied, for decades, old texts, old teachers, conversations passed down through generations of men who had lived in difficult circumstances and had still found a way to hold, give, release, and receive without the quiet terror that rules most financial lives today. He never talked about these things casually. He didn't broadcast them. What he carried with intention. And the night he finally shared the core of it with me, he did it simply, the way all truly important things are said, without drama, without performance, in a way I almost missed. I was young. We were sitting at a table together. The room was quiet. There was a low light. He had a small cloth pouch in front of him, the kind he used for his coins. Gold coins. Old ones, worn smooth at the edges the way only handled things become. He didn't open the pouch right away. He just placed his hands around it, the way you'd hold something you intended to give care to. He looked at me and said, "You don't hold wealth to feel safe. You create safety so wealth can trust you." I didn't understand it then. I was too young, too certain I already knew things. I smiled and nodded and filed it somewhere in the back of my mind, where things go when you're not ready for them yet. It took years before that sentence fully opened. Because everything I had been taught before that, everything the world around me reinforced, day after day, said the opposite. Work harder, save more, hold tighter, get more, protect everything, stack higher, don't let go of anything until you absolutely have to. That is the map most people are using. And that map is not a lie, exactly, but it is dangerously incomplete. Saving is not wisdom on its own. It is only one side of a two-sided principle. Discipline with money, without understanding flow, creates a pressure that actually repels what you are trying to attract. It is not a spiritual metaphor. It is a pattern I have watched repeat, again and again, in the lives of people who did everything right by the conventional standard, and still felt broke in some deep, invisible way. Think about what mainstream financial culture has taught you. Budget harder, invest more aggressively, hustle longer, diversify smarter. These are not wrong on the surface, but they all share one assumption that is almost never questioned. The assumption is that wealth is something you capture and contain, that the goal is to fill a vessel as full as possible and then seal it shut so nothing leaks out. That model feels safe. It also quietly strangles the very flow it claims to protect. Gold, specifically, attracts people who understand the limits of paper, and I honor that instinct completely. Gold is real. Gold holds value across centuries. Gold has memory in a way fiat currency never will. But even gold, the most honest of all financial instruments across human history, even gold cannot multiply in a closed system. This is what my grandfather knew. This is what the generations before him understood and preserved. Not that gold was wrong, not that preparation was wrong, but that the relationship underneath the holding was either aligned or it wasn't. And the alignment is the difference between someone who holds gold and feels peace, and someone who holds gold and feels like they are barely keeping the wolves back. Most people relate to money the way someone relates to a person who has left them before, with gripping, with performance, with constant checking, with a low permanent anxiety that no amount of accumulation can quiet. And money, and gold, its most honest expression, responds to that relationship. It responds the way any living thing responds to being held too tight. It goes still. It stops moving. It waits. And money that waits is not protecting you. It is simply sitting there, as afraid as you are. That is the condition I want you to examine. Not your portfolio, not your allocation, your relationship. Because that is where the law lives. And the law is this: wealth flows toward those who demonstrate they are not controlled by it. Wealth flows toward those who demonstrate they are not controlled by it. Not those who are reckless, not those who are careless, not those who throw money away and call it freedom. The law is more precise than that. It is about demonstration, a specific, intentional act that signals to the deeper order of things that you are a channel, not a container. That you understand money as something that moves, not something that hides. And here is where it becomes practical. Because this law has a method, a sequence, and the sequence matters. The first step is acquisition with intention, not acquisition from fear. There is a difference that lives entirely on the inside, but its effects show up on the outside over time. When you buy gold because you are terrified of collapse, you are making a fear-based move. The gold is real, the purchase may even be wise, but the energy underneath it is a closed fist, and a closed fist cannot receive. When you acquire with intention, you are saying something different. You are saying, I am building, I am stewarding, I am preparing, not because I believe everything will fall apart, but because I understand value and I choose to hold something true. That shift is not cosmetic. It changes the posture of everything that follows. The second step is acknowledgement. Before you store it, before you log it, before you move on, you pause. You hold the coin or the bar or whatever form your gold takes, and you acknowledge where it came from. Not sentimentally, deliberately. You name the work, the decision, the exchange that made this possible. Gratitude is not weakness. In this tradition, gratitude is a signal. It tells the deeper system that you know you are part of a flow, not the origin of it. The third step is the one most people resist. Before the next accumulation cycle, before you buy again, before you add another layer, you release a portion with clean intention. This does not mean you liquidate your position. This does not mean you give away your savings. The portion can be small. In fact, small and consistent will always outperform large and occasional. What matters is the act itself, the release, the open hand that follows the closed one, done privately, without announcement, without expectation of being seen. This must happen before you buy again. That is the sequence. Acquire with intention, acknowledge with gratitude, release with trust, and then, and only then, acquire again. The cycle, when respected, creates a movement that a static stack never can. But I want to be careful here, because this is where people get into trouble. There are ways to do this that close the very door you are trying to open. If you release in order to prove something to yourself, to someone watching, to any audience at all, the channel closes. If you release out of desperation, trying to force a return, the channel closes. If you give, and then immediately watch to see what comes back, if you are calculating the return before the gift has even left your hand, you have turned a sacred act into a transaction. And the law does not respond to transactions. It responds to trust. Even disciplined gold holders fall into this quietly. They do something generous, but underneath it, the ledger is already open. The expectation is already forming. They tell someone about it because it feels good to tell someone about it. And the moment it becomes performance, the moment it leaves the space of private and true, something subtle drains out of it. The motive is everything, and the motive is the hardest thing to be honest about. Ego giving. I release because it makes me look like someone who is not controlled by money. But you are still thinking about how you look. The channel closes. Fear giving. I release because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't. That is not release. That is a ransom payment. Manipulative giving. I am putting this out there so the universe will give me back more. That is commerce dressed in spiritual language. The channel closes. The only motive that opens the channel is this. I release because I am not ruled by this. Because I understand I am a steward, not an owner. Because I trust the flow more than I trust my grip. And that leads to the deeper explanation, the one beneath the method. Think about what your hand looks like when it is tightly closed around something. Think about what can enter a hand that is clenched. Nothing. Nothing can enter. The hand is full of what it already has, and its posture makes receiving physically impossible. Now think about the hand that is open, still strong, still intentional, but open. That hand can release and receive at the same time. That hand is a conduit, not a container. This is what the tradition my grandfather carried was pointing toward, in every teaching, across every form it took. You are not meant to be a vault. You are meant to be a channel. The vault holds, the channel moves. And in the movement, abundance finds a place to land. Gold is powerful. Gold is ancient and real and worth holding. But gold responds differently depending on whose hands it is in. In the hands of someone who is clenched, who is storing from fear, who is counting ounces in the dark, hoping the number is enough, Gold is inert. It sits, it waits, it cannot call more of itself toward it. In the hands of someone aligned, someone who holds with intention, acknowledges with gratitude, releases with trust, and acquires again with purpose, gold becomes something more than a hedge. It becomes evidence. It becomes part of a living pattern, and that pattern tends to expand. This is why some people hold less and still receive more. It has nothing to do with luck. It has nothing to do with the market. It has everything to do with what they have become in relationship to what they hold. You were never wrong. I need you to hear that clearly. You were never wrong for wanting something real, for distrusting systems that have failed before, for believing that something physical, something ancient and tested was worth holding on to. That instinct was correct. You were only incomplete. The shift I am describing is not about buying less gold. It is about becoming a different kind of person while you hold it, moving from protector to steward, from container to channel, from gripping to guiding. You don't grip wealth anymore. You guide it. That identity shift, from someone who holds from fear to someone who holds from alignment, that is the change that unlocks what you have been trying to build. And it does not require you to change what you own, only how you relate to it. I have seen this quietly. People who applied these principles, not loudly, not with announcement, but privately and consistently. Things shifted for them in ways that are hard to point to exactly. A debt that had been sitting still suddenly became manageable. An opportunity appeared in a space they hadn't looked. Something eased. Not dramatically, not like a fairy tale, but real and steady and unmistakable to the person living it. Those people did not change their strategy. They changed their posture. And the posture changed everything. This is only the first principle. There are others that build on it, others that have to be understood together before the full picture becomes clear. Those who go deeper into this teaching begin to see patterns that most people miss entirely, in timing, in the nature of generosity, in the way certain decisions seem to open doors that no amount of hustling could have forced. But today, this is what I want to leave with you. You were right to seek something real. You were right to want something solid underneath your feet when everything else is uncertain. Gold is not the mistake. The relationship to it has been incomplete. And now you know the difference. Wealth follows those who are not ruled by it. Hold your gold as a steward, not a hoarder. Acquire with intention, acknowledge with gratitude, release with trust before you add more. Keep the hand open, keep the channel clear. My blessing for you is simple. May your finances carry peace, not panic. May your preparations become platforms, not prisons. May what you build serve not only you, but the people you love, the generations that come after you, and the world that will benefit from someone who finally understood how flow works. You are not a vault, you are a channel. Remember that every time you hold a coin in your hand. If this opens something in you, there is more to remember. Stay close. And if it moved something, if something in you shifted while you were reading, drop a comment and say, I don't hold from fear. I move in alignment. Let that be your declaration.